Wild Coast FM, your community connection.
We are going to be chatting to Bonnie Curran, and today we are going to be chatting about, it's something called Get Them While They're Still New and In Love With You. It sounds kind of like maybe they're talking about the Jesuits. I don't know. Bonnie, what are we talking about?
We're talking about brand love. So it's that moment when a prospective candidate eventually signs on the dotted line and they decide to join your organization as an employee. So we call it brand love because in that moment they're the most excited, passionate, proud, motivated, they can't wait to get started. And it's the trick about how to retain all that emotion during the tenure, and hopefully a long and healthy tenure with your organization. That's what it's about.
Okie dokie. So, any surprises there? I mean, obviously, they're doing some research and they go out and look at companies, and I'm imagining, Google with their multiplex and all their spas and things will come up quite high.
Yeah, they do from a global point of view. So I think let's start by saying, and that some companies still say it, it's so frustrating, but, everyone, we talk about the last 2 decades, everyone proudly, when they realized that the employees were the most important thing in the organization, people started saying that people are the organization's most important assets. And we've been hearing this mantra already over the last couple of decades. The craziness about it is, of course, that especially in the declining markets where we've reduced skill, not every person can be an asset. In fact, those that are non-productive are a liability to you. So what we're really saying is productive employees are a company's most important asset. And that's what we're trying to achieve in a company. When you employ someone, make sure that they are productive and successful and then retain them. And the others, get rid of them. Now, it's not so easy in South Africa. So the goal is to ensure that you try your level best, because by the time you've made that decision, you think you're making the right decision on those employees. So it's how do you go about trying to ensure that they're all productive and, they're all assets to you. And it all starts in the first day, the induction. And I think, I'm trying to remember, I think I had this analogy once when we were chatting, Peter. It was around how so many people make a mistake with the induction process. So it's like, the analogy I was using is, you invite people over, new friends that you potentially made, and you invite them over to your home for dinner. And they arrive, and you might not even be there. Maybe you're still at work, and, so a stranger lets them in, and they awkwardly sit around your lounge waiting for you. And you come running, and you go, oh, hi, I'm so sorry. Haven't quite prepared dinners yet. Let me quickly go to the kitchen. You don't mind waiting for me. And everything's sort of done back to front, because really all of that should be done by the time your guests arrive. You wouldn't treat them like that in your home. But yes, we do that to employees. They arrive on the first day, it's like, oh, we haven't got your computer ready yet, or we still got to print your business cards. I'm just in a meeting. Do you mind waiting for me? And I'll take you around the building and show you where the bathrooms are. I mean, it's just the most terrible experience on your first day.
Yeah, it makes you feel really loved, huh?
Yeah, exactly. When that brand love just goes straight out. So, and the whole induction process, it's quite a valuable process, but again, organizations get it wrong. And you know why? Induction's handed over to the HR departments, and they use it as a compliance checklist. So you arrive at your company, and because South Africa is so governed by so much sort of labor legislation, your whole first week is spent on reading policy after policy after policy. I mean, the amount of documents we give new employees, we've killed 100 trees, and as if they're really even going to remember anything that they've read, to be quite honest. And so your first week is spent in the most boring, environment that you could possibly imagine. And so all your passion that you came in thinking, I'm going to do these great, wonderful things, is spent reading document after document after document. It feels like you're in a prison and you've got 100 rules that you need to adhere to. And actually, the reality is most of these documents that you read, you're only paying attention to the clauses of interest, like what day is payday, and if I want to have studies, who do I contact, how do I make those loans, things that interest you. So it's like we all get these upgrade notifications on our cell phones, and it says like you push here to upgrade, and then you first got to read all the terms and conditions. Now the interesting thing is how many of us actually read those 4 pages of terms and conditions. You all just go to the bottom of your screen, you push I agree.
Yeah.
And it's like that in the workplace. You're not really reading everything. Some people are a little bit more meticulous and they want to go through it. but your whole week's now spent. So what have you done really? You've gone through the most awful induction process. So this is welcome to the culture. Now, you've lost that brand love. So what we're really suggesting is that, you turn it on its head. In the digital sort of platform that we now find ourselves in, there's so many other sort of techno-savvy ways to go through that policy process. Bearing in mind, most companies will make you sign all these policies anyway to say you've read them. But in fact, during your tenure, they change because things change. New policies come out, legislation changes, and so you've got to go through the process again. So really your employment contract should be saying to you that, you are responsible to make yourself aware of all the policies that are found on the company intranet or in some other techno-savvy tool that you have available. And by signing here on this employment contract, you agree that you've made yourself familiar, you've read it, and you agree to adherence to them. And so now you use that induction process to build that culture. Because when you've got a solid organizational culture that everyone understands and therefore adopts and adheres to, that's how you produce productive employees. And, you go through the good old process, get them excited, treat them like a prospective client. Introduce them to all the key players, introduce them to all the functional heads, let your CEO, MD, someone come down, build relationships with them. Show them the corporate video, show them the marketing material, get someone who has the glitter and the eye still about selling the brand to engage with them so that they can feel that, and then you start living that brand. That's the employee after a week that you want to send out to do the job correctly.
Yeah, just talking about changing policies. When the new POPI law comes into effect, some of the policies in most businesses are going to have to change anyway because the Protection of Private Information Bill.
Yeah, look, that's been, I rolled it out in a company 3 years ago, and it's still not really, and I heard you guys on the radio yesterday, I listened to it. It's going to be a nightmare for companies. So yeah, it's the same thing. Every single policy will need to change, and your behavior, and your company setup. You said you're going to have lock cupboards everywhere, certain people's keys, locking in, locking out. It's going to be a whole different workplace, and I think that's why it's taking so long to roll out. Because who's going to walk into every single company and check everything? But it's coming, it's there, and so yeah, those are the typical examples that come out. It's exactly that, and so things are going to be changing. And so for me, your sort of first week shouldn't be around introducing people to every stringent rule, especially the new workforce. And the new workforce, we call them a strange breed. They like to feel you rather than see you. So they like a combination of digital and person-to-person induction. So they don't want to be given a whole book of documents to read through. Tell them, here's the link. Here's an hour. Quickly go through. Ask me any questions that you have. Click here, click here. There's all this online sign-in, authorization, adherence to documents. There's all sorts of things that people should be implementing and save the trees. And then use the time for face-to-face. They like to know that they've got contact to all the senior people, that they're not restricted by these hierarchies and these silos. Those are the kind of things that need to be broken down. And the interesting thing is you spoke about Google. So, of course, every year that we go through all these various employee of choice sort of surveys. And of course, the perception even in South Africa would be these new economy type companies, the ICT companies, because they demand such scarce skills. There's going to be mandatory as such for them to have and obsess about having the most sort of healthy and funky and conducive working environment to be able to attract and retain these people. However, in South Africa, these ICT companies are not the ones that come out on top all the time. We have a lot of very traditional companies, conservative type companies that are getting it right. So it's not only about giving each employee an iPad. It's about how that organizational culture is instilled so that everyone adopts it, breathes it, walks it, and talks it. That's the company that's producing great employees because they're one and the same. They're aligned.
I was quite shocked, Bonds. I did some research into HR, and granted it was overseas material, but I was quite shocked how much distrust there was from employees regarding HR because they tended to be seen as on the side of the company rather than on the side of the workers.
Well, companies, of course, they do what they need to do to protect themselves. And even though you said it's global research, in South Africa, we unfortunately have, because of the legislation that's in place, companies do need to protect themselves. So we've got this basic conditions of employment, and you wonder why don't we just all say that that's how we govern the workforce. However, companies have to put 101 other types of policies out to protect themselves. So they do. The employees join there. And I do HR consulting now, and I tell many of my clients, I would not join your organization. If you gave me documents like this to sign, I'd just say no thanks. And so I'm suggesting to you, you need to give this up front before you get the person to sign the contract. Because if you give me this to sign after the contract, I would be a very unhappy employee before even day one starts. Because, and they do, they go, but we have to protect ourselves. We've had this incident. We've had this example. So we're forcing our companies to have 100 policies to protect every example that they've ever faced and landed up in CCMAs or whatever kind of challenges that they faced. But I'm just saying you need to ensure that employees understand that culture and have the opportunity to make a decision to join your company prior to signing on the dotted line based on all these policies that you've had to implement.
Yeah. I had a friend who owned one of these breakfast and coffee type places, won't mention names, and he was just saying, he came from Germany and he was so frustrated. He said, here I employ 20 people for a place this size. In Germany, I would employ 4. They would be professional waitresses, paid well, and they would attend to absolutely everybody. Here they fall over each other and people still don't get served.
So it's a service issue. So our waitresses are still not deemed professionals, so it's students. They're doing it because they want to earn a buck to pay for their data time. Let me tell you, some restaurants in East London have got it right. They have mature, professional waitresses, and you can see they're taking it as a career. And it is a career. Whatever job, I think that's the point to all our students. Any job that you're going to do, that's part of your career. That's a path that you take in, and each one of them. Our waitress for many years during studies and while I was traveling, and let me tell you, gave me the groundwork of work ethic, customer service, all the things I tell students. Go and do these kind of jobs while you're studying. So otherwise you're on a back foot when you enter the workplace because you haven't learned any of these lessons as yet.
Yeah. Bonds, great chatting to you as always. Thank you so much. Any final points before we close?
Yeah, let's just be careful of this corporate policy fatigue that we put on the employees. Get online and spend some time instilling your culture when the guys start, if you want them to live and breathe it.
And I think let a superstar mentor take them under their wing and just get all that enthusiasm rub off onto them as well.
There you go.
Okay, Bonds, thanks so much.
Cheers, Peter. Bye.
Bonnie Curran, captain of Current Consulting. We'll be chatting to her again next week.